We got a SP success story that is definitely worth hearing. I think this is really going to encourage some of you manifesting your specific persons. And I also want to say, if you are manifesting a specific person, well, hello. This video is a BBL for you. My fellow flawless, limitless, sexy, sassy, saucy Hbics. How are you on this lovely morning, afternoon, or evening? How are you all? I hope you are all doing fabulous. If you are new to my channel, how are you doing? I'm Kimberly, and I am obsessed with manifestation and getting what I want and getting it quick. I don't like to wait. And if you think the same way, I would love for you to subscribe and please come back and see me. And if this is the first video you've ever watched by me, oh, you picked a good one. You picked a good one because we got an SP success story that is off the chain, in my opinion, because let me just say this change and her reality happened literally in less than a week. The noticeable changes from 3D happened within 2 days. Okay? 2 days. So I think this is a good one. Just saying. All success stories are good ones, but just saying, this is a pretty juicy one. So you better come back and see me. So like I said, please subscribe. Let me just start with some quick basic bitch. If you need help figuring out what's going on between you and your manifestation, please feel free to email me at manifestingwithkimberly@gmail.com. All of my coaching options are in the drop box below. They're in the screens that just went by. I have 3 channel memberships where I go live with my channel members 3 times a week. Yes, I do. You get to hang out with me 3 different times. We have the VIP group, which is the Advanced Manifestors group. We go live together every single Tuesday at 8 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time. And Poop is saying that you should join that one because that one, you have access to all of the channel memberships. And the Advanced Manifestors are the only group that gets access to all replays or recordings of those meetings in case you miss one. The Advanced Manifestors group is where we go deep dive in manifestation. You can call it your virtual, like a book club, because we're going to deep dive everything we can on all the different books and perspectives on manifestation to deepen your understanding and therefore deepen your trust and your belief within manifestation, which can only serve you along this journey. So there, I have the hot seat group. I go live with them every single Friday at 9 a.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time. That's the group you can hop on in the hot seat and ask me anything you want. It's like a 10 to 15 minute coaching call. If you join that group, you have access to the also Tuesday 9:30 p.m.-ish Eastern Standard Time exclusive lives groups. We have 2 groups on Tuesdays. The exclusive lives group is the group where it is yours only. Success stories, tips and tricks, and nothing else. It's a good group. They're all good groups. So if you're interested in that, drop box below. If you want to work with me, drop box below. You want to find me on my other channel, Kimberly's Other Life, drop box below. I have TikTok, I have Instagram, I have Clapper. Okay, I am done selling myself to you. Let's jump into the juicy success story. So first and foremost, I'm going to keep some details private for, her own personal privacy. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to keep things a little bit anonymous, nothing too specific to give her away, right? So long story short, we have a wonderful, beautiful, sexy, sassy, saucy Hbic who is manifesting her specific person. This specific person is or was an ex, meaning this is someone that she had a relationship previously. The relationship ended. And for the last year or so, she's been on a manifestation journey. Now, she has not been coaching with me that whole entire time, but she was manifesting him. The beauty of this is that when she started coming to me, she was in the knowing that throughout this past year or so, she was learning manifestation. She wasn't choosing to be new self. She wasn't actively embodying the state of the woman in the loving, fulfilling, committed relationship that she wanted to be in. She wasn't. And you know what? Neither was I in the beginning of my journey. I was always in a victim state. So for the most part, that's why I'm hesitate to say how long she had been manifesting her person, because listen, let's be honest. You know, in a lot of success stories, you hear how long someone's been manifesting, and the truth of it is they were trying to manifest, but really doing it from a victim state. And, you know, whatever state you're in is what reality will reflect. So just going to leave it there. And no judgment to anyone. That's where I was too for nearly almost 2 years. So I was a hot mess. You know what I mean? So she would find herself getting really upset with 3D, getting triggered. You know, SP would come in hot and leave again cold, back and forth, a lot of back and forth. So she started to come coaching with me a few months ago. And, you know, the concept of choosing new self was not necessarily new because she had watched some of my content. She was a channel member herself. And she started opening herself to that idea of, is it possible? Is that enough to just say your new self and then go about life? I do believe that she continued doing some other techniques that made her feel good, like scripting and affirming. And like I say to anybody, you can do any technique you want. If it feels good to you, do it. But if you're a busy biatch and you don't have a lot of time on your hands, yes, making a conscious decision that you are a new version of yourself is enough if you're authentically choosing that. Now, what do I mean by that? I took notes. She experienced, as I said earlier, a lot of hot and cold behavior. And she authentically owned that. When SP would say anything like, you know, I don't think I'm interested in continuing this. I don't see us getting back together. You know, I'm not looking for a long-term relationship at this point. Anything that sounded like the opposite of what she wanted, she would get really upset, really triggered, and want to shoot off shit messages back at him, you know, getting frustrated with him and fighting with him. Or she would get emotional in her response to him. She would get upset, and, you know, obviously feelings were somewhere in there for her because he wouldn't like to see her upset, right? That wasn't his goal. He was not consciously choosing to be a jerk, which is, I'm bringing that up for a reason because I think we lose sight of that. If you are open to the idea that you are manifesting your reality, and I word it that way for a reason because I know some of you are still questioning whether you believe this is real or not, and I get that. But if you are someone that is accepting that you are pure, unadulterated consciousness, period, and you are manifesting your reality, what that implies, you're manifesting your reality. So that means you're getting your reflection in reality, the reflection of who you really believe you are, or AKA what state you are in. And the idea is to be authentic with yourself. So I'm sharing the point of how he would come in hot and cold, and she would respond, get triggered and upset, and really start thinking, you know, crappy ass thoughts, fearing that this was never going to work, doubting manifestation. Like, we all have had those thoughts. I'm just going to say it. We all have had those thoughts. But why do you think that was? It's because authentically, in those moments, she was not being her new self. Now, it's important to note, I am not saying that if you're making a decision to be your new self, that you have to be perfect every single day, and you have to be perfect with how you're interacting with reality. That's not the message. But sometimes we believe that we're choosing to be our new self. And if you're new here, new self just means the version of you that has the desire, or at minimum, the version of you that believes that you will have the desire, or that you are becoming that new self. But some of us are telling ourselves that we're there, but we are doing nothing to get our attachment off of 3D. So when she was getting triggered and upset with 3D reality, and therefore most certainly reacting and responding to 3D reality, to SP, when she wasn't getting what she wanted, that was in a sense anchoring her to the version of him that couldn't make a decision, changed his mind. 1 minute he wants the relationship, next minute he doesn't, because she was anchored there. She was doing nothing different in her manifestation game. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when I suggest that you embody a new state or make a decision to be a new version of yourself, when you make a decision that you are about to, I'm going to consciously manifest my specific person. Obviously, in that moment, when you make that decision, the old man must die, right? That's from Neville Goddard. What does that mean? That means the old version of you, the old state you were embodying, has to go bye-bye as you step into the new state or embody the wish fulfilled or step into the version of self that has the manifestation. We have to let go of the habits of our old self and authentically step into new self. And she wasn't doing it. She was taking the advice of choosing to be the version of her in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. But from there, that was it. She was still hanging on to every word he said. So therefore, when he was showing up cold, reflecting cold, she believed in the reflection. She believed he truly means that. He truly isn't choosing her. So she would go back into that victim state and chasing type energy to start shooting off messages. I wouldn't say that she was begging him to change his mind, but she would be her old self in those moments. Let me word it like that. Doing the same exact thing I used to do. I was hung on to every single word he said. Everything he did determined my mood. Essentially, she was in that type of mindset as well. And I know some of you out there are also experiencing that. So what changed for her was another cold moment showed up on her journey. And he verbalized once again that he didn't want the relationship. But this time, she remembered me saying to her, you got to do something different here. You're choosing to be the version of yourself that's in the relationship, but something has to change. If you're still handling reality or handling him, handling what you're believing about the relationship, if you're doing everything the same exact way you were doing as your old self, something's got to be different, right? Nothing to change but self. So outside of your decision to be new self, are we hanging on to old habits that belong to old self? So for example, shooting off on the text messages, getting upset and triggered and dumping all of that on him, which was only further pushing him off, right? There's a difference between authentically speaking how you're feeling versus saying what you're feeling, but really believing that this person is never going to choose you and is never going to change, and you're heartbroken over it. Instead of respecting his wishes of, he just needs a break. She remembered me saying, something has to change. You need to do something different here, right? What's the definition of crazy? Doing the same exact thing over and over and over and expecting a different outcome. So she listened. And this time she respected his wishes, number one. And let me just imply, I don't mean in any way, shape, or form that in the past she didn't respect his wishes. She did. If he wanted space, she gave him the space. But the difference was she was consciously telling herself, I'm doing this different this time. I'm not going to sit and think that this isn't working or that he's never going to change or I'm not going to get what I want. I'm handling this different. I want to be my new self. I want to be in that new reality. So in the next breath, she blocked him. And she said, I wasn't blocking him to manipulate. I wasn't blocking him to see, if you don't choose me, we'll have to be, haters to each other. No, this would prevent her giving in again if he came back in as his old self, which he was doing along the journey. And by coming in as old self, I mean not solidifying the relationship. She blocked him. And she stood in her decision to be no self. Now, this is not a message of me telling you got to block your specific person. But this was a different action on her part. She was afraid to do this in the past. She was afraid to do really anything in the 3D because she didn't want to lose him. This was a mindset of, fuck it. I'm done with this. I'm done with this. I need to be different. New self does something different here. And I'm going to stand in this. And I'm not going to entertain him until it's different. Well, once he realized he was blocked, within a day or two, messages started coming in through email because he couldn't do it through the phone. And he was shocked as shit that he was blocked, first of all. Second of all, she noticed a gradual change in temperament because it was more than one email, clearly. So by the second day of more emails, she acknowledges one of them. And they get together, they have an adult conversation, and he flipped his script in literally less than 48 hours. He was the version of himself that owned up to being head over heels in love with her, and all of the future talk happened. If you know what I'm putting down, the future talk. He came in a completely different version of himself because she stood in conviction. She stood in conviction as her new self. She doubled down on her decision. It was brazen impudence. I am the new version of myself. I am in a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. That is who I am. I am not going to handle this scenario the same way I've been handling it. It was a conscious change in self. And it worked. And it worked pretty flawlessly. And what's important to note, because I did take notes, she prioritized herself. She put herself first. Her deciding that for her mental health and because a change needed to happen here, that the constant focus on him and who he's being and if he'll change or if she's going to be able to manifest this, that kind of shit needed to go, and she knew it, and she wanted to be successful. She wanted it. So that decision to block, again, I cannot stress to you, this was not from a place of let me force manipulate 3D. No, she was standing in conviction. Standing in conviction. I'm so proud of her. Because in the past, she would give in to the less than perfect or the less than favorable version of him every single time. And then continue the cycle of hot and cold. So this time was different. She stood in conviction. She prioritized herself. She chose herself this time. She chose herself. Can't be more proud of her. She wants all of you to know that she had moments of feeling bad, sad, worried, doubtful. She had said to herself along the way that she was her new self, but she knew this time she actually meant it. Now, this is why I brought up earlier in the call that, it's one thing to tell yourself your new self, and it's another to consciously think the thought and say, I actually mean it this time. I am my new self. I am handling life differently. I am going to handle how I interact with SP differently. I want change. I'm going to be the change. I'm going to make myself the priority. She meant it this time. In the past, in my defense of her, I believe she meant it in the past too when she made her decision. But I believe that she was really falling back to her old self, getting attached to 3D at minimum. Her attachment was on the 3D. This time, it was a conscious choice of trying to not be attached because she knew she deserved it. She knew she deserved what she was manifesting. She knew she was worthy of it. She didn't feel perfect. She had moments of frustration, even as she was standing in conviction in this period of time that we're talking about. But it didn't mean her mind didn't throw a fearful thought at her. But she wasn't going to let that fearful thought scare her out of her decision and to break down and contact him. She stayed with brazen impudence. She wanted me to make sure that I tell you in this video something that I've said myself, but maybe if you hear it from her words, it might sound differently. It might hit differently. When you step into new self authentically, your responses change naturally. And what that meant for her, that there was no more rage texting. Remember how I said that she would pick up the phone and blah, 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 blah? That didn't happen this time. How she responded to SP. She was able to communicate authentically her desires, what she wanted, and what she expected. And she stepped into this knowing feeling of, I'm going to say what I want, and I don't care if he doesn't like it. I don't care if that feeling or that stress or threat that I'll lose him if I say it, if I'll push him away, because I'm putting it out there that I want a loving, fulfilling, committed relationship. And that's what I'm going to have. And if that's not what you want, that's fine, but I'm going to move on if not. She was confident in that. She stood in that. Can you hear that? That is prioritizing yourself. And there's a difference in the energy. Now, I know some of us want to say things like that to our SPs, but from a desperate, needy place, that's not the state to do it from. It is a different energy. You don't have to feel that desperation because there's nothing to be afraid of if you would allow yourself to shift or change your awareness like she did. She also noted that, before coming to my channel, when she would hear anyone talking about, detaching from 3D, she thought that meant having to let go of what she was manifesting. She didn't understand that that's not. Now, in her defense, I know that is a misconstrued message out in the community. When you ever hear me talk about detaching from the 3D as your best friend, it's because detachment is your best friend. Detachment doesn't mean you can't think about your manifestation. She herself said, I was so scared of that word detachment that I believed it meant I had to let go. And I knew internally, how can I let go of the desire I want so badly? The relationship with the love of her life. You don't have to let go, and you don't have to stop thinking about what you're manifesting. You just have to get to the place where you can look at the 3D and say, fuck that. I'm not going to be afraid anymore. I am not going to let the 3D dictate to me who I am or who I am aware of being. It's taking the power back where it belongs, within you. She wanted to also make sure that she got the message out that, don't worry if you don't see what you want in 3D, or if 3D reality isn't really showing you anything that is indicating, hey, your manifestation's coming. It's going to unfold naturally, right? Natural, logical bridge of incidents. Granted, instant manifestations happen all the time. Hearing that it's going to unfold naturally doesn't indicate that it's going to be a long time. In fact, it took less than a week for the complete turnaround from the moment of hearing the message, I don't want this anymore, from her SB. I don't want this. I'm not looking for the same thing you're looking for. We should go our separate ways. We should stop seeing each other. She went from that, hearing that again, right? That hot and cold cycle, from hearing that to having him turn around and say, I'm sorry, I don't want to lose you. I do want this relationship. Blah, blah, blah. I'm in love with you. He is in love with you. To get that turnaround, it was less than a week. It was less than a week. From the moment that she chose to block him, just for her own sanity reasons and to guide her into brazen impudence, that she could have this if she wanted it. And to stop giving in and taking breadcrumbs that make you feel like you are being strung along, like a carrot being dangled in front of your head, but the full thing never coming. In fact, it was more cold. She wanted that to stop. She wanted him to come in right. She wanted off the cycle. So that blocking was for herself. It was her own boundary. And this is why I say that sometimes putting a boundary down in 3D is you choosing your new self. It is. And that's what it did for her. She chose herself. I can't say it enough. She chose herself. She stood in conviction. So what was the magic technique for her? It was truly the decision to be her new self and standing in the conviction of, I am new. I am new self. I am letting the old state die, letting the old man die. I am standing in this. I'm not going to let 3D reality push me around. Boom. I want to make it clear that I think what's really important is how some of us misunderstand that as we are stepping into our new self, the self that has the manifestation, as we are embodying that, embodying being in the relationship you want to be in, I think there is a belief that if you don't feel good all the time, or if the thoughts that come in aren't perfect, then you couldn't possibly be in the wish fulfilled. And that is just not true. That's just not true. Thoughts pop in on their own. They are not your fault. What thoughts pop in aren't your fault. And it doesn't mean you're out of the state. It just doesn't. Every single state, every version of yourself has all feelings and emotions available to it. Freaking rude. Do you mind? So, I'm hoping this has zhuzhed some of you out there. I'm hoping. I know we've put success stories up before and then the comments come in. What did she exactly do? What did they exactly do? They made a decision. They stood in it. The specific technique never matters. She's dabbled in scripting and she's dabbled in decision making. She made a decision. I've said it before. What does it mean to make a decision? How do you know what clothes you're putting on today? How do you know what shoes you're putting on today? How do I know what color I'm about to paint my nails? I make a decision. It's the same conscious decision. I'm different. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to handle reality different. Because as you embody new self, you're going to see that how you handle 3D naturally changes on its own. And she's right. She's right with the message she wants shared, that if you stand in conviction that you are your new self, you are going to be different. And it comes naturally. So don't feel frustrated if you don't feel any different. Choose it anyway. It will come. And all I mean by that is you will see that as you stand in your conviction, you affirm to yourself that you are your new self. Or use words that feel good to you. New self means to me, I'm the me that has all of my desires. That's who I am. That as you stand in that, you will see you're going to become less and less bothered by circumstances. You're not going to be afraid to stand in conviction. It will come naturally. I couldn't be more happier for her. I couldn't be more prouder for her. And if she ever decides that she would like to get on a Zoom so that we can actually record and share a conversation between the two of us, I will happily have her tell it in her own words. And maybe she can give a few more details from her journey. I'm totally open for that. Before I let you go, I just want to say one of the very important little nuggets that she shared, and I'm so glad she's sharing this one, meaning she wants this to get out to you guys. Because I know, I can say things a million different times in videos, but maybe hearing it, the validation from someone who's taken my advice and it worked, that as she stood in conviction, as she stepped into her new self, the past experiences that she had as her old self with her specific person feel different. The memories feel different. She doesn't feel like she was the girl that experienced the past with her SP. In that short of a time, she felt the difference, and her memory of the experiences change. And that's because she's no longer the version of herself that had those experiences. I've said it before that even myself, all of my past relationships, number one, and before I stood in conviction of this current version of me, anything related to my own SP prior to this version of me, they don't feel like my memories. They are very muddied, for what it's worth. And I love knowing that, because that's my own validation that I'm not her anymore. And she is not her old self. This works, guys. There's not rocket science to this. It's not difficult. It's just being consciously aware of who you are identifying as. You can affirm it to yourself. You can visualize your new self. You can script it. You can do what feels good to you. But it'll work. The conscious mind rules the subconscious mind. Try to remember that. So on that note, I'll see you tomorrow.